Hello and welcome to Galactic Goddess Podcast. I'm your host, Rod Anelia, and today we have a very special guest, Emerita. She's a multidimensional creator, energetic healer, divine guide, lover of life, and author in her upcoming book, Stories of the Goddess. Welcome, Emerita.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I am excited too, especially what we're going to be discussing today, which is the purity of the black sheep. So let's just jump right in.
Yes.
So the other day we were having a conversation and we were just, chatting about the book. And I think it just came up about how sometimes our family may not understand us, how sometimes healers can be ostracized in our families or with friends, um, not really understanding, I think, the depths of our heart and our intentions, and sort of kind of transmuting that in a projectile way, kind of projecting on the black sheep, basically anything that they can't process. So what would you like to say to that?
Yeah, I would love to share that story too, because I feel like that's kind of how it got brought up. So I was actually visiting my family at home, and I have a sister that I hadn't seen in over 10 years. And she has her own beliefs, which I'm a full supporter of. I'm such a believer that every single person is free to believe whatever it is that they choose, as long as they're doing no harm, of course. And so it's always just been kind of, I let her believe what she wants, and she's kind of pressed some of her beliefs on me before, which is fine. I understand. Again, we talk about the projecting, right? But this time when I was going back for a visit, she had talked to my other sister and had made a comment of asking about, like, oh, is Amarita going to be doing readings? Does she try to do readings when she's around you? Do I need to protect myself? All of these things. And I was just genuinely hurt, because I feel there's such a misconception around so much of this work, right? When we talk about readings, energetic healing, so many different aspects of this work, I feel it's so holy, full of love. And of course, we do different shadow work and really get to the depths of the deeper issues that may be ingrained and going on. But at the end of the day, it's all for that purpose of being able to heal, expand, and grow. So it was just so interesting to me, because I was going into that visit with such an open heart, so excited to see my sister after over 10 years. And then to immediately have that come up of, oh, is she going to be this way, this way? I just felt very judged, to be honest, and it's just such a misconception, right? Very misunderstood, which is, I think, a big thing that a lot of people experience, being the black sheep in their family, right? So I love too when we talk about the purity of the black sheep, because a lot of times it is that person that is just simply misunderstood. So
Um, it's kind of like what we said before, the more light you shine, the more shadows that you cast. And I think I also heard another light worker talk about how in the coming year it's very possible, because the sparks of light can be seen as actually offensive, and it's not a conscious thing. It's actually very unconscious, because I think when people don't do the shadow work and they're not inner processing, that the light that sparks out of light workers is actually it's offensive. And that was really hard for me to grasp. Like, wait a minute, like, we're here to bring more light to the world. And but it can be very confusing, I think, for light workers when their and intention is to bring more light, to bring more love, to bring more healing, and to really be heart-centered, when there is that rejection that can be really harsh and strong. And it's almost shocking, because you're like, wait a minute, I'm coming here with like a pure heart, I'm not sure what's going on.
yeah.
So how did you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a great point to bring up too, because as I had said, I went into that visit with such an open heart. And at first, my initial reaction was to close, right? My initial reaction, my initial response was, it's not safe. Inner child wounds coming up, right? It's not safe for me to shine my light. It's not safe for me to speak my truth. It's not safe for me to be my authentic self. So I actually got myself out in nature. I was with my entire family, and I'm like, I need to go for a walk. I need to get outside. So I was in Colorado. It had just snowed the day before. It was freezing. And I just got outside and I allowed myself to feel everything that was coming up, all of the feelings, because a lot of them were connected to little Amarita being misunderstood, feeling like she wasn't safe to be herself. And again, that immediate response of close, protect, right? So that was a big thing for me, is to be able to get out in nature, take a deep breath, and remind myself, like, okay, I know who I am. I know that the work I do is pure and heart-centered and what it's grounded in. And I also really challenged myself in that situation to see her perspective and to understand that we talked about this the other day too. People can only meet us as deep as they've met themselves. So for her to place that opinion out, right? Not even directly to me, but to my other sister, which I happened to see, right? I happened to see the text message come through, but for that to be put out, it felt so hurtful, because if anything, I was hoping that would be something she could just talk to me directly of, hey, listen, I don't know exactly what you're into, which I just find funny anyways. But like, I don't know what it is, but please don't do that when I'm around. I would have respected that, because again, it comes back to respecting beliefs, that if our beliefs aren't in full divine alignment, that's okay. We can still coexist with love in our hearts. So I think the challenge for me in that situation was to keep my heart open, even though all I wanted to do was close off. Like, I wanted to close my heart. I wanted to go home. I was walking. I'm like, why am I even here? This is why I don't live here. This is why I don't want to be here. So I think I had to feel all of those feelings first. I'm such a believer in feel it to heal it, right? To be able to sit with those emotions rather than just, I shouldn't feel that way. She's entitled to her own opinion. Of course, I felt that way. How could I not, right? So I needed to feel that first, let myself process those emotions, and then ground in the truth of who I am. I also reached out to a really good friend of mine who's a fellow healer. She's actually the one that I learned Holy Fire Reiki from, Michelle Carrington. So I reached out to her and I said, hey, are you available for a conversation? It's a bit heavier. And I think that it's so important to be able to preface that of, hey, this is a little bit heavier. Can we talk it out? So we were able to talk about it too. And she gave me such great advice. She said, this is where you get to find the balance of shining your light and standing in your truth, not hiding out, not closing your heart, not playing small, but also not trying to be too big, right? Not being too, look at me, here I am, like, shove it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know that sounds bad, but it's true of like, we don't have to be so like, you know what, here are my beliefs, I'm going to rub them in your face.
Like
Still,
overcoming.
absolutely, absolutely. And still really handling myself with the grace and compassion that I know to be the goddess, right? So it was such a beautiful experience. And I felt like truly it was an initiation within my journey, a
Yeah.
big initiation for me.
I was just gonna say that. I was like, these are initiations, and it feels like, they're not really gonna slow down or stop. We're just being invited to feel more comfortable with sometimes discomfort too. And I
Mhm.
think that's a big thing, especially like in the USA, where if people feel triggered, they just want to be like, you're wrong, get out of my way, you're done. And that's it. And it's like, as adults, we have to learn new ways of dealing with conflict. And sometimes, and like you said, that I think everything you did was so incredible, like the stepping away, the going into nature, the feeling the feelings, because I'm a big believer too, feeling to heal, because if we don't, those emotions and feelings of maybe rejection, they get lodged into our body, and that's when people get really sick, right? So if we don't deal with these as they come up in real time, we're dealing with a whole bunch of shadowy stuff that we have to deal with later. So why not just try wherever we are to deal with them in the moment? And it's so challenging. It's not easy. No matter what, you know what I mean? It's not easy. So I really congratulate you for having the courage to face that moment and to not just be like, you know, giving everybody the bird and walking away, leaving that situation, but you actually still immersed yourself right back in. That takes a really big person to do that. It's so not easy, especially when the inner child is being triggered.
Yeah, it was huge. It was such a defining moment. And I'm grateful also to reach out to my close circle, like to be able to express that out. I'm a big believer in talking things out and voicing them out and venting them out. So to be able to do that with someone that I do trust and I know is safe was a huge part in it too. And then it was beautiful because my sister and I were able to have a conversation directly about us having a difference in beliefs and that it's okay. And I actually, for the first time in my life, told her this hurt me. Like that hurt me very deep instead of just reacting of like, well, da da da, the projection or the
Responsibility.
deflection. Sorry, what did you say?
You took responsibility of the hurt. It's not that it was your responsibility that those projections came to you, but the feeling that it activated, you know, I think that's so powerful because then people have a chance to say, oh, I'm sorry. Because if we're like, how dare you, you know, and then we're already starting that kind of, that's where the war comes in, the war energy. So by taking responsibility, it completely diffuses it. And that's really hard too.
Yeah, all of this is so much easier said than done, right? And
Yeah.
it's not until we're in these actual moments that we're gifted with the opportunity to respond and to not just react as we always would, right? I talked about running. That is my natural first response because of my nervous system in my childhood. What I experienced, my first instinct is to run. That's a complete fight or flight. That's the flight, right? My nervous system saying it's not safe, get out, get out. And for the first time, I think in my adult life, and from childhood as well, I chose not to run and I actually faced it, but not facing it in the energy of just like we were talking about, oh, I can't believe you, or oh, me versus you, right? Because that's still separation. And ultimately, the goal is union, remembering that we're all just walking each other home. We all truly are one. We're all connected. So to be able to ground in that was such a powerful experience. And now that it's passed, we're like a few weeks after the fact, I feel completely better, so rejuvenated. I can look back on it feeling like it was forever ago, excuse me. And in the moment, it was intense, right? So
Yeah.
many tears, feeling so hurt, so heartbroken. So, also a loving reminder that when we're in the thick of it and we're feeling it, knowing this too shall pass and thinking, what outcome do I want and how can I align my actions with that outcome? Because if I react in a way that isn't of grace and isn't of compassion, then I'm who you're saying I am. And I'm showing you that your projection is correct, right? To where if we can pause, which the power of pause is huge. I feel like we could do a whole episode on that, right? But if we can actually take a moment to pause and think about who we truly are, know who we are, and know that, again, like the advice that I was gifted, you don't have to be way too big and you don't have to be way too small. Just be you, shine your light. So I'm glad it happened now. In the moment, I probably had a different opinion, but now I'm grateful for the experience.
Yeah, coming through the other side is it's beautiful when you look back and you know, there's no shame like in the past if we haven't been able to do that because we only have the skills that we have at the moment, you know. And I think let's just be honest, we're all growing. Like nobody came here like in a bundle of, you know, we're all divine perfection, but the human experience itself is so messy and there's a lot of distortions and trauma, and we're all working our way through those traumas, layers and layers. Whether I think that's actually why most healers come into the work, is because, you know, we're like, wait a minute, this isn't right. We don't want to live with this trauma. We want to transmute it and alchemize it and find the gems in it, you know. And I think that's for a lot of healers have had very traumatic childhoods, but that also gives them that deeper compassion and insight so that they can hold that space. I always say starseeds drop into very challenging situations because not because it was easy and not because they were the light that was make it all better, but because they really are there to experience rejection, to, you know, trauma, whatever entanglements are there, but also so they could step out of it and start alchemizing those lineages as well.
Absolutely. And coming in to break those generational curses. So often it's the black sheep that's really doing a lot of this inner work that
Yeah.
is doing things differently. That's why they're the black sheep, right? Because they're doing things a different way. They're doing things in a way that the rest of the family may look around and be like, that's weird. Why are you doing that? We've always done it this way, right? Especially with parenting and these things that get passed down. The person that can use their voice and really say, hey, this isn't right, is usually the one that is considered the black sheep, but it's because they came here, just like you said, right? The starseeds, the healers, the ones, highly sensitive people, empaths that were placed in these positions for optimal expansion, for optimal growth. Because when we are in these experiences, we're gifted with great growth, and it's not easy. I think, again, this is so important. I could say this a million times, that this journey is not easy. And that's often, as you said, why we're placed where we are, so that we can really have that expansion and that growth.
It's beautiful. I'd like to just say one thing that's amazing about being a black sheep, and that is there is a gift in being a black sheep. And what that gift is that most of the family will have to enact and replay the lineage script, basically. And so the black sheep actually has a past, and this sounds really weird, I know, but they can make different choices, and they do make different choices, radically different choices than their lineages, in how they're choosing to live their life and the patternings that they want to carry out. They still may have to work through them and are faced with them again and again, but they know that the ultimate goal is to sort of break the chains of those. Whereas oftentimes the rest of that family is locked in. And so my father and I actually had a conversation about it, and he joked with me. He's like, oh yeah, like, yeah, you're the black sheep, but we love you, and I thought it was cute because at the same time I had this epiphany that it was also the key out of sort of the old lineage paradigms. It doesn't mean that we don't go and do the work, and often we're transmuting like lineages upon lineages of our ancestral stuff, and it's like I always say there's nothing glamorous about healing. I feel like I'm a house cleaner, like cleaning the house of my lineage,
It's so real.
it's very tedious, and but I'm I think you have a sense of devotion to that, and I'd like to hear your input on that.
Yeah, I love that. And even the visual when you talk about the house, right? Like cleaning the house of the lineage. It's almost like I saw right when you said that, like someone spending hours and hours detailing this house, like a room in the house, excuse
Yeah.
me, making it so perfect, leaving, going to the next room, and then someone coming in and being like, hey, I want to play with all these things. Hey, it's so nice in here. Let me move all this around, right? A lot of it isn't just a one quick fix. Actually, it's almost never like that, right? It's standing in our truth, grounding in our power, knowing that we're here to make a difference, and showing up consistently in our power, in our authentic truth. Because I think that that is the hardest part for the person that gets labeled the black sheep. Because I've had the same thing, like, you're the black sheep, but we love you. Like you're the weird one, the odd one out. Like, okay, Amrita, okay. I've had that so many times. And the sooner that I embraced that, the sooner that I was able to really grow and expand, because I spent a lot of time fighting it and just being so sad and feeling so defeated at the fact of like, why am I different? Why? And now I embrace it. And I know that my family already knows. So I can say whatever it is that's so out there, and it's not going to make a difference, and it's not going to matter. And it's so validating in its own way of, again, once we're on this journey and we're doing the work consistently, the outcome speaks for itself. What we're able to accomplish in our lives and how we're able to grow and expand, that really can be admired. And I feel like a lot of times it'll be like the pull the black sheep to the side and say, I wish I could do it. I wish I could do what you're doing. I'm so proud of you. Don't tell anyone I said that, right? This desire of like, you're the one that dances to the beat of your own drum. You're the one that has broken all of these chains. Thank you. And I feel so strongly that we all play a particular role in our family anyways. So everyone's playing their own role in their own way. So for some of us, we could be breaking most of the generational curses, and sometimes it can be scattered too, right? So I think that the more we ground in our own truth, the more that we continue to clean that house, right? Room by room, and then teach the others like, hey, you can play in this room, but I'm going to teach you how to clean it up really fast afterwards. because it's already clean. So you can play in it, do whatever you want. But then at the end, we're just going to put it back how it was. Like if we can lead by example and show the way and pave the way, then we're making a big difference, because then we're also gifting that opportunity for those around us to learn, instead of just admiring it from afar of like, oh, I could never do that. Because I think a lot of times too, it's those of us that leave home or we do something differently. We break, maybe if everyone in the family was a doctor, we're the ones that want to be an artist, right? Whatever it is, whatever that looks like for us, I feel like usually there is some form of, oh, I wish I could do that, which a lot of times gets projected as envy, jealousy, lower vibrational frequencies. And it's not that they mean to do that. It comes from a space of they genuinely sometimes don't know how. They feel like they can't.
Yeah, it's so tough. I think this lifetime requires so much compassion. And like it is easy to get jaded. We were just talking to you earlier, like these past few years, like wow. And still you could still see things like, oh, this is very imbalanced, but still having compassion for the whole. I think everyone is doing the best that they can where they are at. And it's hard to imagine at times, but that's the truth. That is the truth, that everyone is doing the best that they can where they are. And so, yeah, I think that there's a new, it feels like a new, like an ancient but new echo is coming in and emerging into our world, when we're sort of, collectively, there are many of us that are really bringing in these new energies and messages. And the children that are being born now, a lot of them are just crystalline babies with like DNA that's already much more encoded, and it's just incredible. So they're, despite all of this, there is a beautiful shift going on. And I think that, what were considered the black sheep or outcasts of the family are really finding their voices now, finding their bigger mission. And it's not to put anybody down, right? It's not about, oh, like we're done with you now. It's like, no, we want to, we're stepping into our whatever we're meant to do. But that doesn't mean that that you're not important, because our family is very important, despite any of the, struggles that we've all had with our families. They're important to us. And I think that that was a gift, is that those struggles made the black sheep who they are, in the sense that, it pushed them to do the things, to go out of the lane and to take a different route. So there are many beautiful gifts too. And like, in your chapter you talk about you, I'm not going to reveal your chapter, but you've some beautiful pieces, and you can feel free to share some of it. But I'm really excited about your chapter in Stories of the Goddess and bringing that forward, because as I told you, it's so relatable what you wrote about.
Yeah, it was so powerful to be able to share it too. And especially in that form of writing, it's been a passion for so long that I've kind of shushed away and ignored. And it was time to answer the call and really show up. And it's so beautiful, because I know there have been so many pieces of writing that I've read that I've resonated with so deep and finally felt understood. And so for me, I remember this is coming through, so I'm just going to share. The first book that I ever read, like real chapter book, was in 6th or 7th grade, and it was a child called It, about a child that was being abused at home. And I remember reading it and sobbing because I never felt so understood in my life. And it's a very like trigger warning. It's very intense and a very detailed story, but to be able to read that, it made me remember that I wasn't alone and that there were other people that were experiencing what I was. Because I think that's the biggest thing too, is in the moment and at the time, it's really hard to share. It's really hard to share that what we're going through, what we are experiencing at home, right? So I think being in the place now, knowing, and I wrote about this in the chapter too, when I was experiencing it then, I knew that I was going to share that story and it was going to be someone else's lighthouse. And I was in it, so it was a lot harder, and I was a child, so I had the one goal to survive. That was my That was my goal of, all right, I'm going to make it through this and I'm going to look back and this is going to be a part of my past. It's not going to matter, but it will matter in the sense that it's going to be a lighthouse for someone else. So I think there are so many people that have these stories, and then it takes for someone else to share theirs for them to say, me too. I've never told anyone, but me too. I've never told anyone. That's the biggest thing I hear in the coaching industry, working with clients, offering divine guidance and readings and energetic healings too, is so many people that say, I've never told anyone this, but XYZ, or random people that will come up to me and just pour their heart out because they know it's a safe and loving space to do so. So I think that by sharing our stories, and you talked about it earlier, opening the throat chakras and being able to speak our truth, right now we are collectively shifting so much in that space. And it's so beautiful because the more that we're able to not only acknowledge what our journey held, because we all have our own unique journey and we all have a story, right? Acknowledging what it gifted us with, what did it teach us, and how can we take those lessons and share them with others so that they don't have to go through it maybe as deep as we did. There might be someone that went through it for 10 years and someone that reads their story at their 1 year mark and says, you know what, I'm going to end this now. I don't have to do 9 more years of this, right? So sharing these aspects of these stories and what we experience can be very scary, but it's so rewarding. It's truly so beautiful to be able to share these things openly and vulnerably. I think it's so important.
Oh, so beautiful. You made my heart just go, oh. I'm just excited because, I'm excited for Stories of the Goddess with all the incredible women who are sharing stories from their heart. And that's the purpose of why I wanted to curate these books, is because I know exactly what you said. Like, there's so much healing and transmutation when we share our stories from the perspective of the author and from the reader. And I think it's a symbiotic relationship, that as we're sort of having these epiphanies and sharing and revealing, we're sort of shedding the shame. And one of the biggest things, I think, as you said, so many people are like, I've never shared this before. But what if we all just started sharing and realizing that, we've all experienced like things that we think no one could relate to, but if we shared it, there is someone that can relate to it. And in that, we realize we're not so alone. It can be very lonely in this life, and surprisingly in America, like our culture is very different. Everyone is out on their own doing their own thing, and in other cultures, it's a little bit more tribal, right? So, it's the American culture is beautiful in that sense, but there is a sense of also deep, profound loneliness that just, I think it's something that we're trying to find a way through, because especially with the past few years, we've realized, wow. So that's why it's so important to find your tribe, find your collective. Our family is not just our biological family. Our family also is connected through soul. Our souls have traversed through many lifetimes. Sometimes we met here and there, and we're all coming back now. So that's also the purpose of the book, is to put that call out to, like, say you have a tribe of sisters that are across the world and they read your chapter and they're going to be like, wow, I really resonate with her soul. It's really about the soul essence of who we are and that vibration, and finding a way to reach others who also echo that, so that we can create these beautiful communities. So anyhow, any last words you'd like to share about the
Oh, I just want to thank you for curating these books and for bringing so many beautiful souls together, because it's so profound to see how many different walks of life can come together and make something so powerful, and to be at that same frequency, that high vibrational energy, to be able to really have this golden compass for those that are going to find these books, right? I think it's so important and so beautiful. So thank you for allowing me to be on this podcast episode and to have this talk. It's such a pleasure to sit with you and to have these honest, raw, vulnerable, authentic conversations. And it just makes me excited to see what is going to come for more collaborations in the future.
So excited too. Thank you all so much for joining us. I will be sure to leave Emma Rita's information below so you can connect with her. Until next time, much love and blessings. Bye for now.